Hi friends, continuing to the channel The Chanda Ram. Above all else, Bombay was free, exorbitantly free. I saw the liberated, unconstructed spirit wherever I looked, and I found myself responding to it with the whole of my heart. Even the flare of shame I didn't felt when I saw the slum first and the begging beggars dissolving in the understanding that they were free, those men and women. No one drove the beggars from the street. No one banished the slum dwellers. Painful as their lives were, they were free to live with them in the same gardens and avenue as the rich and powerful. They were free. The city was free. I loved it. Yet I was little unnerved by the density of a purpose, the carnival of a needs and greed, the sheer intensity of a pleading, and the seeming on the street. I spoke none of the language I heard. I knew nothing of the cultures there, cloths and robes, and saris and turbans. It was as if I found myself in a performance of some extravagant, complex drama, and I didn't have a spirit. But I smiled, and smile was easy, no matter how strange and disorienting the street seems to be. I was fugitive. I was a wanted man, a haunted man with a price on my head, and I was still one step ahead of them. I was free. Every day when you're on the runs is the whole of your life. Every 3 minutes is a short story with a happy ending. And I was glad of Prabhakar's company. I noticed that he was a well known on the streets, that he was greeted frequently and with considerable warmth by a side and a wide range of people. You must be hungry, Mr. Lancey, Prabhakar observed. You are a happy fellow, don't mind, I am saying it. And a happy always has its good appetites. Well, I am hungry enough, all right. Where is the place we are going to anyway? If I don't know, it would be take this long to be the get to the restaurant. I would have been brought a cut lunch with me. Just a little bit, not much too very far. He replied cheerfully, Okay. Oh, yes, I will take you to the best restaurant and with the finest Maharashtra foods. You will enjoy, no problem. All the Bombay guides like me eat their foods there. This place is so good, they only have to pay the police half of our usual backsheet money. So good they are. Okay. Oh, yes, but first let me get in an Indian cigarette for you. And for me also. Here we stop now. He leads me to a street stall that was no more than a folding card table with a dozen brands of cigarette arranged in a cardboard box. On the table there was a large brass tray carrying several small silver dishes. The dishes contained a shredded coconut, spices, and an assortment of an undefinable paste. A bucket beside the card tables was filled with spread-shaped leaves floating in water. The cigarette sellers was drying the leaves, smearing with them with various paste, filling them with the ground dates, coconuts, betel, and the spices, and rolling them into small packages. The many customers crowded round this stall purchased the leaves as fast as his dexterous hands could fill them. Prabhakar pressed close to the man, waiting for a chance to make his order, craning my neck to watch him throughout the ticket of the customer. I moved closer towards the edge of the footpath. As I took a step down onto the road, I heard an urgent shout. Look out! Two hands grabbed my arms at the elbow and jerked me back. Just as a huge, fast moving double decker bus swept past. The bus wouldn't kill me if those hands hadn't halted me in my side. And I swung round to my face, my savior. She was the most beautiful woman I have never seen. She was slender with the black shoulders, length hair, and a pale skin. Although she wasn't tall, her square shoulders and straightened backwards postures, with both the feet planted firmly apart, gave her a quick, determined physical presentations. She was wearing a silk pants, bought tight at the necklace, back low heel shoes, and a loose cotton shirt, and a large, long silk shawl. She wore the shawls backward with a double mane on the liquid fabric, twinkling and fluttering at her back. All her clothes were in a different shades of a green. The clue to everyone and everything a man should love and fear in her was there. Right from the start is the ionic smile that permeated and swelled the archery of her full lips. There was a pride in that smile and confidence in the set of her fine nose. Without understanding why, I knew beyond the question that a lot of people would mistake her pride for arrogance and confuse her confidence with impassive plea. I didn't make that mistake. Mr. Eyes were lost, swimming, floating free in the shimmering lagoons of her steady, even stare. Her eyes were large and spectrally green. It was the green that the trees are in vivid dreams. It was a green that the sea would be if the sea were perfect. Her hands were still resting in the curve of my arm near the elbow. The touch was exactly what the touch of a lover's hand should be, familiar yet excited as a whispered promise. I felt an almost irresistible urge to make her hand and place it flat against my chest, near my heart. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. I know how that she would have laughed if I don't know, and she would have liked me for it. But strangers that we were then, we stood for 5 long seconds and held the stare, while all the parallel worlds, all the parallel lives that might be and never would be rolled around us. Then she spoke. That was so close. You are lucky. Yes, I smiled, and I am. Her hand slowly left my arm. It was an easy, relaxed gesture, but I felt the detachment from her as sharply as if I would have been roughly woken from a deep and happy dreams. I leaned towards her, looking behind her to the left and then to the right. What it is? She asked. I am looking for your wings. You are my guardian angel, aren't you? I am afraid not, she replied, her cheeks dimpled with a very wiry smile. There is too much of a devil in me for that. Just how much devil? I grinned. Are we talking about there? Some people were standing in a group on the far side of the stall. One of them, a handsome athletic man in his mid-20s, stepped to the road and called to her, Carla, come on here. She turned and waved to him, then held out her hand to shake mine with a grip that was firm, but emotionally indeterminable. Her smile was just an ambush. She might liked me, or she might have just been happy to say a goodbye. You still haven't answered my question, I said as her hand slipped for mine. How much devil have I got in me? She answered me, the half smile teasing her lips. That's a very personal question. Come to think of it, that might be just the most personal questions anyone ever have asked me. But hey, if you come to Leopards sometime, you could find out. Her friends have moved to her side of a little stand and she left me to join them. They were all Indians, all young, and dressed in the clean, fashionable Western clothes of the middle class. They laughed often and leaned against one another familiarly, but no one touched Carla. She seems to be project an aura that was attractive and inviolable. At the same time, I moved closer, pretending to be integrated by the cigarette seller's work with the leaves and paste. I listened as she spoke to them, but I couldn't understand the language. Her voice in the language and in that conversation was surprisingly dream and sonorous. The hairs on my arm tingled in a response to the sound of it, and I suppose that too shouldn't we be unwarning. The voice Afan matchmakers says is more than half of the love, but I didn't know that then, and my heart rushed in, where even matchmakers might fear to tread. See, Mr. Lindsay, I brought it just 2 cigarettes for us, Prabhakar said, rejoining me and offering one of the cigarettes with a flourish. This is India, country of poor fellows. No need for buying a whole packet of a cigarette here. Just 1 cigarette you can buy only, and no need to buying it any matches. He leaned forward and took up a length of an smaller hemp rope that was hanging from a hoop of an telegraph pole next to the cigarette stall. Prabhakar blew the ash from the end of it, exposing a little orange ember of the fire, which he used to puff his cigarette alight. What is he making? What are they chewing in those leaves? Is called palm. A most very excellent taste and chewed it is. Everyone in the Bombay is chewing and spitting, chewing and more spitting. No problem day and night also. Very good for health it is. Plenty of chewing and full spitting. You want to try it? I will get it for you some. I nodded and let him make the order. Not so much for the new experiments of a pan as for the excuse it's offered to the stand there longer and look at Carla. She was so relaxed and at home, so much a part of an street and its inexorable lore. What I found be wild all around me seems to me mundane for her. I was remembered of her foreigner in the slum, the man I hadn't seen from the window of the bus. Like him, she seemed calm and content in Bombay. She seems to belong. I envied her the warmth and the acceptance she drew from those around her. But more than that, my eyes were drawn to her perfect loveliness. I looked at her, a strange and every other breath strained to the force it way from my chest. A clamp like and tightened fist seized my heart. A voice in my blood says, yes, yes, yes. The ancient Sanskrit legend speak of an distinctive love, a karmic connection between the soul that are fated to meet and collide and enrapture one another. The legends say that the loved one is instantly recognized because she is loved in a very gesture, every expression of though, every moment, every second, and every mood that prays in her eyes. The legend says that we know her by her wings, the wings that only we can see, and because wanting her skills, every other desire of the love. The same legends also carry warning that such fated love may sometimes be the possessions and the obsessions of one, and only one, of the two souls twinned by the destiny, but wisdom is in one sense is the opposite of the love. Love survives in us precisely because it isn't wise. Ha, you look the girl, Prabhakar observed, returning with the pawn and follow the direction of my gaze. You think she is beautiful now? Her name is Carla, you know that? Oh yes, Carla is everybody's known, he replied, in a stage whisper so loud that I feared she might hear. You want me to meet her? Meet her? If you want it, I will speak to her. You want her to be your friend? What? Oh, yes, Carla is my friend, and she will be your friend also. I think so. Maybe you will make a lot of money for your very good self in the business with Carla. You will become so much good and closely friend that you will have it a lot of fun sexes together and a full of an enjoyment of your bodies. I am sure you will have a friendly pleasure. He was actually rubbing his hand together. The red juice of a pan stained the teeth and the lips of his smile. I have to grasp at his arm to stop him for approaching her, there in the group of her friends. No, stop. For Christ's sake, keep your voice down. Prabhagar, if I want to speak to her, I will do it myself. Oh, I understand, he said, looking abashed. It was that the foreigners are calling foreplay, isn't it? No, foreplay is. Never mind what foreplay is. Oh, good. I never mind about the foreplay. Mr. Lindsay, I am an Indian fellow, and we Indians fellow, we don't worry about the foreplay in. We go straight to the mumping and jumping. Oh, yes. He was holding an imaginary woman in his hand and thrusting his narrow hip at her, smiling that red-juiced smile at all the will. Will you stop that? I snapped, looking up to see if Carla and her friends were watching him. Okay, Mr. Lindsay, he cited, slowing his rhythmic thrust until they stopped altogether. But I can still make a good offer of your friendship to the Miss Carla if you like. No, I mean, no, thank you. I don't want to proposition her. Oh, God, what is the use? Just tell me, the man who is talking now, what language is he speaking? He is speaking Hindi language. Mr. Lindsay, you wait 1 minute. I will tell you what is he is saying. He moved to the far side of his stall and joined her group quite unself-consciously leaning to its listen. No one paid any attention to him. He nodded, laughed with other, and returned after a few minutes. He is telling it one very funny story about an inspector of Bombay police, a very great, powerful fellow in this area. That inspector did lock up a very clever fellow in his jail, but the clever fellow he did convince that the inspector of to let him out again, because he told that inspector he had some golds and jewels. Not only that, but when he was free, the clever fellow sold the inspector some of the gold and some jewels. But they were not really gold and not really jewels. They are the imitations and very cheaply, not the really things. And the worst mischief, the clever fellow lived in the inspector house for 1 week before he sold that not really jewels. And there is a big rumor that the clever fellow had a sexy business with the inspector's wife. Now the inspector is crazy and so much angry that everybody is running when they see him. How do you know her? Does she live here? No. Who? Mr. Lindsay? That Inspector Weiss? No, of course not. I mean the girl Carla. You know, he must. Frowning hard for the first time. There are a lot of girls in this Bombay. We are only 5 minutes from hotel. In this 5 minutes, we have seen it 100 of girls. In 5 more minutes, there is a more 100 of girls. Every 5 minutes, more 100 of girls, and after a little of a walking, we will see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Oh, hundreds of girls! Great! I interrupted sarcastically, my voice much louder than I intended it to be. I glanced around. Several people were staring at me with an undisguised contempt. I continued in an hushed tone. I don't want to know about hundreds of girls. Prabhakar, I am just curious about that girl. Okay. Okay, Mr. Lindsay, I will be telling you everything. Carla, she is a famous businessman in Bombay. Very long she is here. I think 5 years maybe. She has one small house not far. Everybody knows the Carla. Where is she from? I think German or something like that. But she sounded American. Yes, it sounded, but she is from a German or like to be the German. And now, anyway, is almost a very Indian. You want to eat your foods now? Yeah, just a minute. The group of an young friends called out their goodbyes to others near the pond stand and walked off into the mill and squirrel of the crowd. Carla joined them, walking away with her head held a high in that curiously straightened back, almost defiant posture. I walked her until she was swallowed by the people tide of a crowd, but she never looked back. Do you know a place called Leopold's? I asked Prabhakar as he joined me and we started to walk once more. Oh, yes, wonderful and a lovely place it is. Leopold's Beer Bar, full of the most wonderful, lovely people, the very, very fine and a lovely people. All the kind of foreigners you can find there, all making good business, sexy business, and the drug business, and the money business, and the black market business, and a naughty pictures, and smuggler business, and the passport business, and okay, Prabhagar, I got it. You want to go there? No, maybe later. I stopped walking and Prabhakar stopped beside me. Listen, what your friends calls you. I mean, what your name for short instead of Prabhakar? Oh yes, the short name I'm having also. My short name is Prabhu. Prabhu, I liked it. It is meaning the son of a light or like to that. I is good name. Yes, is good name. Yes. And your good name, Mr. Lindsay, it is really not so good. If you don't mind, I will telling your face I don't like it this long and a kind of an fiki name for an Indian people speaking. Oh, you do not? Sorry to say it, no. I don't. Not at all. Not a bit. Not even a tenzi or a winzi. Well, I smiled. I'm afraid there not a lot I can do about it. I'm thinking that a short name, Lynn, is much better, he suggested. If you're not having objection, I will call you Lynn. It was as good as a name as any, and no more or less false than the dozens others I would assume since the escape. In fact, in the recent months, I found myself reacting with an quakery phantasms to the new names I was forced to adopt in one place to another, and to the new names that the others gave me, Lynn. It was diminutive. I never couldn't have invented for myself, but it sounded right, which is to say that I heard the Udo echo of something originated, fated, a name that instantly belonged to me, as surely as the lost secret name with which I was born, and under which I have been sentenced to 20 years in the prison. I peered down into Prabhagar's round face and his large, dark, mischievous eyes, and I nodded, smiled, and accepted the name. I couldn't know then that the little Bombay streets guide had given me a name thousands of people from Koloba to Karanchar, from Kansas to Berlin, would come to know by me by the name. Fate needed accomplishers, and the stone in the density walls or mortar with a small and heedless compensatives such as those. I look back now and I know that the naming moments, which seems to be so insignificant then, which seems to be demanded no more than an arbitrary and superstitious yes or no, was in fact a provisional moment in my life. The role I played under the name and the characters I became, Lin Baba, was more real and true to my nature. that anyone or anything that I ever was before it. Yes, okay, Lynn will do. Very good. I'm too happy that you liked it. This name, unlike my name, is meaning son of a light in Hindi language. Your name is Lynn. Has it also a very fine and so lucky meaning. Yeah, what does Lynn mean in Hindi? It's mean penis, he explained with a delight that he expected me to share. Oh, great, that's just great. Very, yes, very great, very lucky. It is not exactly meaning this, but it is sounding like ling or lingam, and this is a meaning penis. Come on, it, man, I protested, beginning to walk once more. How can I go around calling myself Mr. Penis? Are you kidding me? I can see it now. Oh, hello, pleased to meet you. My name is Penis. No way, forgot it. I think we will stick to Lindsay. No, 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 Lynn. Really, I am telling you, this is a fine name, a very powerful name, a very lucky name, and a too lucky name. The people will love this name when they can hear. Come, I will show you. I want to leave it this bottle of a whiskey you gave to me. Leave it with my friend, Mr. Sanjay. Here is his shop. You just see how he likes it, your name. A few more paces along the busy street brought us to a small shop with an hand painted sign over the open door. Radio 6 Electronic Repair Enterprises, Electronic Sales and Repairs, Sanjay Deshpande Properties. Sanjay Deshpande was a heavy set man in his 50s with a halo of an grey white hair and a white bushy eyebrows. He sat behind a solid wooden counter surrounded by the bomb blast radios, a illustrated cassette player, and the boxes of the part. Prabhakar greeted him, chatted in a rapid Hindi, and passed the bottle of whiskey over the counter. Mr. Deshpande clasped a meaty hand on it without looking at it and slid it out of sight on his side of a counter. He took a sheaf of a rupees note from his shirt pocket and pleaded off a number and passed them across his palm, turned towards. Prabhakar took the money and slipped it into his pocket with a moment as swift and fluid as the tentacle grab of a squid. He finished talking at last and beckoned me forward. This is my very good friend, he informed Mr. Deshpande, patting me on the arm. He is from New Zealand. Mr. Deshpande grunted. He is just today coming in Bombay Indian guest house. He is staying, Mr. Deshpande grunted again. He studied with me a vaguely hostile curiosity. His name was Lynn, Mr. Lynn Baba, Prabhakar said. What is name? Mr. Deshpande asked. Lynn. Prabhakar grinned. His name was Lynn Baba. Mr. Deshpande raised his impressive eyebrows in a surprised smile. Lynn Baba? Oh yes, Prabhakar exhausted. Lynn, a very fine fellow he is also. Mr. Deshpande extended his hand and I shook it. We greeted once again and then Prabhakar began to tug at my sleeve, pulling me towards the doorway. Lynn Baba, Mr. Deshpande called out, as we are all about to step into street. Welcome in Bombay. You have an Walkman or camera or any Gito's blastings machine for selling. You come to me, Sanjay Deshpande at Radio 6. I am giving the best price. I nodded and we left the shop. Prabhakar dragged me a few peg furnitures along the street and then stopped. You see, Mr. Lynn, you see how he likes it, your name. I guess so, I muttered. Be wild as much as by his enthusiasm as by the brief exchange with Mr. Deshpande. When I got to know him well enough, when I began to cherish his friendship, I discovered that Prabhakar believed with the whole of his heart that his smile made a difference in a people's heart and in the world. He was right, of course, but it took me a long time to understand the truth and to accept it. What is that Baba apart and the end of the name? Lin, I can't understand, but was that the Lin Baba bit is all about? Baba is just an respecting name. Prabhakar grinned. If we put Baba up on the back of your name or the name of anybody special, it is like meaning the respect we give to its teacher or a holy person or a very old. I get it, but it doesn't make me any more comfortable with it. Prabhu, I got to tell ya, this whole penis things, I don't know. But you did see Mr. Sanjay Deshpande, you did see how he liked it, your name. Look, see how the people love this name. You see now, you look, I will tell you to everybody, Lin Baba, Lin Baba, Lin Baba. He was speaking in a shout, addressing the stranger as they passed us on the street. All right, Prabhu, all right. I take your words for it. Calm down. It was my turn to tug at his sleeve and move him along the street. I thought you wanted to drink the whiskey. Yeah, yes, he signed, was wanting it, and was already drinking in my mind also. But now Lin Baba, with his money from the selling your good parents' presents to Mr. Sanjay, I can buy 2 bottles of a very bad and a nicely cheap Indian whiskey to enjoy, and a plenty of money left for one nice new shirt, a red color, 1 tola of a good chariot, tickets for enjoying a air condition in the picture, and a 2 days of her food. But wait, Lin Baba, you are not eating it your pan. You must put it now in the side of your mouth and chew it before it gets stale and not good for taste. Okay, how do I do it? Like this? I put the leaf wrapped parcel, almost the size of a matchbox, into the side of my mouth, between the cheeks and the teeth, as I had seen the others do. Within a second, a suffocation of aromatic sweetness possessed by the mouth. The taste was sharp and luscious, hoyant and subtly pigmented at the same time. The leaf wrapping began to dissolve, and the solid crunchy nibbles of shaved betel nuts, date, and coconut spilled in the sweet juices. You must spit it out some pond now, Prabhakar said, staring at my grinding jaws with a earnest concentration. You make like this. See, spit him out like this. He spat out a spirit of an red juice that landed on the road, a meter away, and formed a palm-sized blotch. It was a precise, expert producer. Not a speck of a juice remains on his lips. With his enthusiastic encouragement, I tried to imitate him, but the mouthful of crimson liquid bubbled out of my mouth, left a trail of a slobber on my chin and the front of my shirt, and landed with an audible splat on my right boot. No problem, this shirt. Prabhakar frowned, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket, smeared the blood red fluid deeper into my shirt front with an vigorously ineffective rubbing. No problem, your boots also. I will wipe him just like this. See, I must ask it now. Do you like that swimming? Swimming? I asked, swallowing the little pan mixtures that was still in my mouth. Oh yes, swimming. I will take you to Chopati Beach. So nice beach it is. And there you can practice chewing and spitting, and chewing and more spitting the pan, but without so many of all your clothes only, for a good saving on your laundry. Listen about that. Going around the city, you work as a guide, right? Oh yes, a very best Bombay guide, and a guideling also, Indian also. How much do you charge per day? He glanced at me. He chuckles apple in his impressed grin. I was learning to recognize as the clever underside of his bold and gentle smile. I charge 100 rupees all days, he said. Okay, and the tourists buy it's the lunch, sure. And taxi also tourist pay, of course. And Bombay bus tickets all they pay. Yeah, and chai if we drink it on a hot afternoon for refreshing our good sleeves. Yeah, and a sexy girls if we go there on a cool night if you are feeling a bit needy swelling in our. Yeah, okay, okay. Listen, I will pay you for the whole week. I want you to show me Bombay, teach me a bit about the city. If it works, you okay, there will be a bonus for you at the end of the week. How does that sound? The smile sparked his eyes, but his voice was surprisingly solemn as he replied, "This is your good decision, Lin Baba. You are very good decision. Well, I laughed. We will see. And I want you to teach some Hindi words, okay? Oh, yes, I can teach everything. Ha means yes, Nahi means no, and Pani means water, and Khana means food. And okay, 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 we don't have to learn it all at once. Is that the restaurant? Good. I am starved. I was about to enter the dark and unprepossessing restaurant when he stopped me, his expression suddenly grave. He frowned and swallowed the heart as if he was unsure how to begin. Before we eating his good foods, he said at last, before we make our business also, something there is. I must tell it to you. Okay, his manner was so dejected that I felt a twinkle on uprising. Well, now I am feeling that Tola Chatters, the one I was selling to you in the hotel. Yes, well, that was the business price. The really price, the friendship price, is only 50 rupees for one Tola Afghanistan charas. He lifted his arms and tell him and let them slap down at his thighs. I charged it 50 rupees too much. I see, I answered quickly. The matter was so trivial from my point of view that I was tempted to laugh out loud. I was obviously important to him, however, and I suspected that he wasn't often moved to make such admissions. In fact, as he told me such later, Prabhakar had just then decided to like me, and for him that meant he was bound to an sculpture and literally honest in everything he said or did. It was at once his most endearing and the most irritating quality that he always told me the whole of the truth. So, what do you want to do about my suggestion? He said seriously. We smoke it that business price, chariots very fast until finish that one. Then I will buy new one for us. After now, from now, I will be everything friendship prices for you and for me also. This is a no problem policy, isn't it? I laughed and he laughed with me. I threw my arms around his shoulders and I led him into a steamy, ambrosially activity of a busy restaurant. Lynn, I think I am a very good friend, Prabhakar decided. Grinning happily, we are all the few lucky fellows, isn't it? May it be. It is, I replied. Maybe it is. Hours lately, I lay back in uncomfortable darkness under the sound stop of an chastelessly revolving ceiling fan. I was tired, but I couldn't sleep. Beneath my windows, the street that I have writ and toiled in daylight was silent, subdued by the night stillness, moist with the stars. Astonished and puzzling images from the city tumbled and turned in my mind like the leaves on a wave of mind, and my blood so thrilled with hope and possibility that I couldn't suppress a smile. Lying there in the dark, no one in the world I have left behind me knew where I was. No one in the new world of Bombay knew who was I am. In that moment, in those shadows, I was almost safe. I thought of Prabhakar and his promise to return early in the morning to begin our tour of the city. Will he come? I wondered. Or will I see him somewhere later in the day, walking with another newly arrived tourist? I desired, with the faint, impersonal closeness often lonely, that if he were as good as his word and turned me up in the morning, I would begin to like him. I thought of a woman, Carla, again and again, surprised at her composed, unsmiling face entreated so often. If you go to Leopold's sometime, maybe you will find out. That was the last thing she had said to me. I didn't know that if it was an invitation, a challenge, or a warning. Whatever it was, I meant to take her up on it. I mean to go there and look for her. But now yet, not until I have learned a little more about the city she seems to know so well. I will give it a week, I thought, a week in the city. And beyond those reflections, as always, it fixed orbits around the cold spheres of my solitude, where thoughts of my friends and my family's endless, unreachable. Every night was twisted around the unacquaintance longing of what my freedom had cost me, and all that was lost. Every night was pierced by the spike of a shame for what my freedom continued to cost them. The loved ones I am sure I would never see again. We couldn't beat him down, you know, the tall Canadian said from his darker corner on the far side of the room. His sudden voice in the ringing silence sounded like a stone thrown on a metal roof. We couldn't bet that the manager down on the price of this room. Its cousins. It's costing us $6 for the day. We couldn't beat him down to 4. It is not a lot of money, but it is the way they do the things here. You got to beat these guys down and bratted for everything. We are leaving tomorrow for Delhi, but you are staying in here. We talked about it before when you were out, and we were a kind worried about you. You got to beat him down, man. If you don't learn that, if you don't strain thinking like that, they are gonna fuck you again. Those people, the Indians in the cities, are really merchani mans. It is a great country, don't get me wrong. That is why we came back here. But there is a different than us. They are the hell, then just expect it. That's all. You got to beat them down. He was right about the price of a room, of course. We couldn't save $1 or 2 per day, and haggling is that economical things to do. Most of the time, it is the chivalrous and amiable way to conduct your business in India. But he was wrong too. The manager Anand and I became a good friends in the years that followed. The fact that I trust him on the side and had haggled on the first day, that I didn't try to make a buck out of him, that I worked on an instant that respected him and was prepared to like him, endeared me to him. He told me so more than once. He knew as we did the 6 of our dollars wasn't an extravagant price for 3 foreign men to pay. The owners of the hotels received $4 per day per room. That wasn't their baseline. The dollars or two above the minimum was all Anand and his staffs of 3 rooms boys shared as their daily wages. The little viceroys haggled from him by the foreign tourist cost Anand his daily bread and caused them to change to know him as a friend. The simple and astonished truth about Indian and the Indian people is that when you go there and deal with them, your heart always guided you more wisely than your head. There is nowhere here elsewhere in the world where that quite so true. I didn't know that then. As I closed my eyes in the dark, unbreathing silence on that first night in Bombay, I was running on instant and pushing my luck. I didn't know that I had already given my heart to the women and the city, and knowing none of it. I fell before the smile faded from my lips into a dreamless, gentle sleep. She walked into a leopard as the usual time, and when she stopped at a table near me to talk with the friends, I tried once more to find the words from that flausiban blaze of her green eye. I thought of a leaf and a opal and the warm swallows of her island seas. But the light emerald in Carla's eyes, made luminous by the sunflowers of a gold light that surrounds the pupil, was softer, far softer. I did eventually find the color, the green in the nature, that was a perfect match for the green in her lovely eyes. But it wasn't until the long month after the night in an leopard's, and strangely, excitably, I didn't tell her about it. I wish now with all my heart that I did. The past reflects externally between the two minors, that bright mirrors of her words and deeds, and the dark one, full of her things we didn't do or say. I wish now from that beginning, even then, in the first week that I knew her, even on that night, the words have come to tell her that I liked her. As I did, I liked everything about her. I liked the Hevestian music of her Swiss American English, and the way she paused her hair back slowly with a thumb and the forefinger when she was irritated by something. I liked the large edged cleverness of her conversation and the easy, gentle way she touched the people she liked when she walked past them or sat beside them. I liked the way she held my eyes until the precious moment when it stooped behind and comfortable and then smiled, softening the asile but never looked away. She looked the world in the eyes and stared it down. And I liked that about her because I didn't love the world then. The world wanted to kill me or catch me. The world wanted to put me back in the same cage I would escape from, where the good guys, the guys in the prison, God's uniform who got the paid to do the right things, had chained me to the wall and kicked me until they broke my bones. And maybe the world was right to want that. May it was no worse than I deserved. But repressions that says that breed resistance in some men, and I was resisting the world with every minute of my life. The world and I are not on speaking terms, Carla said to me once in those early months. The world keeps trying to win me back, she said, but it doesn't work. I guess I'm just not the forgiving type. And I say that in her too right from the start. I knew from the first minute how much I like me she was. I knew the determination in her, that I was almost brutal, and the courage that I was almost cruel, and the lonely, angry longing to be loved. I know all that, but I didn't say a word. I didn't tell her how much I liked her. I was numb in those first years after the escape, shells shocked by the disasters that won in my life. My heart moved through the deep and silent water. No one and nothing could really hurt me. No one and nothing could make me very happy. I was tough, with its probably the saddest thing you can say about a man. You became a regular here, she teased, ruffling my hairs with one hand, and she sat down at my table. I loved it when she did that. It meant that she had read me accurately that she was sure I wouldn't take offense. I was 13 then. Ugly, taller than average, with wide shoulders and a deep chest and thick arms. People didn't often ruffle my hair. Yeah, I guess I am. So you went around on a tour with Prabhagar again. How was it today? He looked me to the island, Elephanta, to see the caves. A beautiful place, she remarked quietly, looking at me, but dreaming of something else. If you get a chance, you should visit the Ajanta and Ellora caves in the north of a state. I spent the night there, once at Ajanta, in one of the caves. My boss took me there. Your boss? Yes, my boss. Is he a European, your boss, or Indian? Neither one actually. Tell me about him. Why? She asked with a direct, frowning stare. I was simply making conversation, trying to keep her near me, talking to me, and suddenly awareness that bristled in the single word of her questioning surprised me. It is not a big deal, I replied, smiling. I'm just curious about how people get work here. How they make a living, that's all. Well, I will meet him 5 years ago on a long distance flight, she said, looking down at her hands and seemed to relax come more. Once more. We both got on the plane at Zurich. I was on my way to Singapore, but by the time we got to Bombay, he had convinced me to get off the plane and work for him. The trips to the caves was something special. He arranged it somehow with an authorities, and I went there with him and spent the night in the big cave full of stone sculptures of Buddha and 1,000 chattering bats. I was safe. He had a boy god posted outside, but it was incredible, a fantastic experience, and it really helped me too. To put the things in focus, sometimes you break your heart in the right way, if you know what I mean. I wasn't sure what she meant, but when she paused, expecting a reply, I nodded as if I did understand. You learn something or you feel something completely new when you break your heart that way, she said. Something that only you can know or feel in that way. And I knew after that night I would never have that feeling anywhere but India. I knew. I can't explain it. I just knew somehow that I was home and warm and safe and well. I will still there. What kind of business is he in? What? Your boss? What does he do? Importers, she said, and exporters. She lapsed into silence, turning her head to scan the other tables. Do you miss your home? My home? Yeah, I mean your other home. Do you ever get homesick for Switzerland? In a way, yes, I do. I come from Basel. Have you ever been there? No, I have never been to Europe. Well, you must go. And when you go there, you must visit Basel. It's really a very European city, you know. It is divided by the river Rhine into an great Basel and a small Basel. And the two halves of a city have a really different styles and attitudes. So it's like living in two cities at the same time. That used to suit me once. And it is right on the meeting place of three countries, so you can just walk across the border into Germany and France. You can have a breakfast in France, you know, which coffee and bouquets, and a lunch in Switzerland and dinner in Germany without leaving the city by more than a few kilometers. I miss Basel more than I miss Switzerland. She stopped, catching her breath, and looked up at me through soft and unpainted lashes. Sorry, I'm giving you a geography lesson here. No, no, please go on. It's interesting. You know, she said slowly, I like you, Lynn. She stared that green fire into me. I felt myself rending slightly, not from embarrassment, but from shame. That she didn't say so easily that a very word, I like you, that I wouldn't let myself say to her. You do? I asked, trying to make the question sounds more casual than it was. I watched her lips close in a thin smile. Yes, you are a good listener. That dangerous because it is so hard to restrict. Being listened to, really listened to, is the second best thing in the world. What is the first best thing? Everybody knows that. The best thing in the world is power. Oh, is it? I asked, I said, laughing. What about sex? No, apart from the biology, sex is all about powers. That is why it is such a rush. I laughed again. And what about love? A lot of people say the love is the best thing in the world, not power. They are wrong, she said with terse finality. Love is the opposite of power. That is why we fear it so much. Carla, dear one, the things you say. Dreyer Levy says that joining us and taking a seat beside a Carla, I must have a conclusion that you have wicked intention for our Lynn. You didn't hear a word we said, she chided. I don't have to hear you. I can see by the look on his face. You have been talking your riddles to him and turning his head around. You forgot, Carla, that I know you too well. Here, Lynn, we will cure you at once. He shouted to one of her red jacket waitress, calling the man by the number 4 emblazoned on the breast pocket on his uniform. He chamber, do battle beer. What will you have? Carla, coffee or char number? एक coffee और जल्दी करो. Dyer Levy was only 35 years old, but those years of stitching to him in gloomy vast of flesh and deep lines that gave him the plump and careworn looks of much older man. In defiance of an humid climate, he always wore baggy canvas trousers, a denim shirt, and a lumbered grey woolly sport coat. His thick, curly black hair never seemed to be shorter or longer than the line of his collar, just as a stumble on his bright face never seems to be less than 30 days from his last shave. He spoke a lavish accent English, using the language to provoke and criticize the friend and stranger alike with an indolent malignity. There were people who resented his rudeness and rebukes, but they tolerated them because he was frequently useful and occasionally indisciplined. He knew where everything from a pistol to a precious gem to a kilo of an finest Thai white heroin might be bought or sold in the city, and as he sometimes boasted, there was a very little he wouldn't do for the right amount of money, provided there was no significant risk to his comfort and personal safety. We are talking of an different ideas people have about the best thing in the world, Carla said, but I don't have to ask what you think. You would say that I think money is the best thing in the world, he suggested lazily, and we would both be right. Every sense and the rational persons one day realize the money is almost everything. The great principles and the noble virtues are very well in the long run of history, but from one day to the next, it's money that keeps us going, and the lack of it that drives us under the great wheel. And what about you, Lynn? What did you say? He didn't say anything yet, and now that you are here, he won't get a chance. Now be fair, Carla. Tell us, Lynn. I would like to know. Well, if you press me, I would have to say freedom. The freedom to do what? He asked, putting a little laugh in the last word. I don't know. Maybe just the freedom to say no. If you have got that much freedom, you really don't need any more. The beer and the coffee arrived. The waiter slammed the drink onto the table with reckless discourtesy. The service in the shops, hotels, and the restaurants of Bombay in those days moves from A politeness that was charming or forming to a rudeness that was either an abrupt or hostile. The clariness of an leopard's waiter was legendary. It was my favorite place in the whole world, Carla once said. To be treated like dirt. A toast, Dreyer declared, raising his glass to touch mine. To the freedom to drink salute. Thank you.